Hello, everyone. My name is Jaylyn Cole, and my Supreme Court case is Griswold v. Connecticut, 1965, and my Supreme Court Justice is Justice William O. Douglas. Before we get into my case, you've probably heard of cases like Roe v. Wade, a landmark monumental case for women's rights, the rights to abortion, and the rights to birth control access. However, my case, Griswold v. Connecticut, set the precedent for Roe v. Wade to become what it is today. In 1879, the state of Connecticut passed a law banning the use of any drugs, devices, or medical instruments to prevent conception. Fast forward to 1961, Estelle Griswold, the head of Planned Parenthood in Connecticut, and Dr. C. Lee Buxton, a Yale gynecologist, opened a birth control clinic in New Haven. Their goal wasn't just to provide care, they wanted to challenge a law that they believed was unconstitutional. The pair were arrested, convicted, and fined $100 each, but instead of backing down, they used this moment to take their fight to the highest courts in the land, the Supreme Court. Before we get into our case, let's take a look at the man who delivered the landmark opinion, Justice William O. Douglas. Justice Douglas was born in October of 1898. He overcame poverty and a childhood illness known as polio. He went on to graduate from a lucrative high school in Washington called Yakima High School, where he was valedictorian and a fierce debater. He later went on to Whitman College, where he further found his passion for debate. Then he graduated and then transferred to Columbia Law School. After graduating Columbia Law School, he went on to become a Columbia Law School professor and then becoming a Yale Law School professor, thus being the first and youngest chaired law professor at Yale. After leaving Yale, he served time as the head of the SEC, commissioned under FDR, and then was appointed to the Supreme Court by Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1939, where he became one of the longest-serving justices in U.S. history. Moving on into the case, in Griswold v. Connecticut, Justice Douglas cited multiple amendments in favor of Griswold, while Griswold and Buxton were only citing the 14th Amendment and the right to privacy. Justice Douglas cited the First Amendment, protecting the freedom of speech and the association, which are both central to the decisions in a marriage and family life. He cited the Third Amendment, which ensures the government cannot intrude into any private space, such as your home. While many believe that the Third Amendment is just for like courting soldiers and, making sure you don't keep back in the day, but just making sure that you didn't have them in your house. However, he took a different insight on it and said that the home was a private space that the government cannot intrude on. Then he cited the Fourth and Fifth Amendment to defend personal privacy and the protection against self-incrimination, thus meaning that you could not, if you as a woman, single or married, were to go to a Planned Parenthood and you were to be questioned by officials or righteous groups, you did not have to answer and you could not be criminally penalized for that, as you are not trying to self-implicate yourself, which is really smart, because before reading and researching this case, I did not understand why the Fourth and Fifth Amendment could be cited here, but after doing a deep dive, it very much makes sense, and that's what is so cool about the law, is because how you interpret it can change the meaning of it. So he also cited the Ninth Amendment, which affirms the citizens hold rights not specifically listed in the Constitution, known as the preambles. And then the biggest amendment, that he cited was the 14th Amendment, which prevents states from passing laws that strip away their fundamental liberties. And Justice O. Douglas was a firm believer that it was your constitutional right to privacy. And even if it did not say explicitly in the Constitution, it is all about how you interpret the Constitution to fit today's times, and that the Constitution was not necessarily forever changing, but your fundamental rights and liberties do change to meet the times that you are currently living in. So Douglas argued that these amendments together created zones of privacy that shielded intimate decisions such as family planning, the thought of having a baby, bringing, those into your family from government intrusion. And he believed that that was strongly a personal choice. So there was many routes and options that Griswold and Buxton could have followed, such as closing their doors and just respecting the law. They could have campaigned for public information, like started a public campaign just informing people like of what their services were, and that they weren't trying to kill babies per se. They were just giving women and families, more autonomy over their body. So, and then they could have took the civil disobedience route, and which is what they did. So by taking the civil disobedience route, they openly defied the law. They kept their, Planned Parenthood open. They said that they were going to offer abortion and birth control counseling, just within their scope as medical professionals. So their decision was not only courageous, but it was ethically sound. It doesn't matter what time it was, 1965, 2025. That is an ethically sound decision, in my opinion, because it upheld the principles of bodily autonomy and the right to make deeply personal decisions from your own free will. That's your God-given right. The ethical strength of their stance lies in defending the liberty of countless women, not just their own beliefs. It quite literally, without Griswold v. Connecticut, we would not have Roe v. Wade. We would not have the rights that the current administration is trying to pull back on. So in closing, civil disobedience was the most ethical course of action, and I stand in full support of Estelle Griswold and Dr. Buxton, not only for their bravery, but for their legal foundation that they laid. Griswold v. Connecticut paved the way, as I mentioned, for future rulings like Roe v. Wade and Lawrence v. Texas, reshaping the American law and expanding the right to privacy for all.